Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for showing up on this snow day. It's very tempting to just do nothing, even if all of your plans were virtual. But I'm really excited that you're all here today. Ari and I were chatting before we started that we've been doing webinars for a long time, pretty much since March 2020. And so we're excited to now be able to do, well, we could always, but to do a meeting style this time. So normally the webinars that I give are pretty one-sided just because typically a few hundred folks come and that's way too many squares to juggle, as you can imagine. But for today's meeting, this is a meeting that I typically do at the beginning of each year. We didn't do it last year because of the state of affairs. But I thought we'd try to do it this year. This is a meeting where I like to gather the eco leaders and have more of a two-way conversation about what being an eco leader means to us all, where we'd like to take the program, what we'd like to do with the network, kind of give a refresher on what we could be doing as eco leaders, what we want to be doing, what our friends are doing. And so that is the reason that we are all on camera today rather than my normal webinar. So I'll go ahead and share my screen, which again, it's been 2 years. You'd think that I would be more fluent at doing that. No. Not good at it still. Okay. Now I panic. Okay, I did it. Okay, so yes, welcome to the 2022 Eco Leader Kickoff meeting. Very glad you're here. My name is Rosie Briggs. If you don't know me, I manage the Eco Leader Network. And then I do community engagement and community outreach, community education, all of that good stuff. So all of the things that EcoCycle is doing, I get to talk about it in the public, and I get to organize all the folks in our community who are interested in those things, who should be involved with those things. So that's you. So yes, again, my name is Rosie, and then my wonderful coworker and friend Ari is here with me as usual to help me with the tech things that I'm not so good at. Okay. And again, I will just say one more time that normally your mics and cameras are off, but today they are on. So please, if you could keep yourself muted, at least until the interactive part, that would be great. You can keep your face on or off. It doesn't matter to me. Okay, so our agenda, as I said, it's kind of a two-part meeting. So this first part is more about a refresher on what we can be doing as eco leaders, what it means to be an eco leader, get ideas from other folks in the network, a little preview of what we're doing in the coming year, since there are new opportunities all the time. And then the second section is going to be interactive. So we're going to split into discussion groups. And there are 3 topics that I wanted to cover and get feedback and brainstorming from eco leaders on. So there's education for the Eco Leader Network. So basically, what do you as an eco leader want to learn? What can I teach you? What can I support you in? Number 2 is communication within the network. So I talk to all of you all the time, but how can we facilitate you talking to each other better? And then 3 is visibility and outreach by the eco leaders. So we have this amazing network in our community. How can we make sure that the community knows that we're here? How can I identify myself as an eco leader in my neighborhood, for example? And so these are groups that you should have signed up for when you registered. You were required to pick one. So if you registered, I think you have to have registered to be here. And I think in order to register, you had to have picked a group. So I think we're all good. But if we don't, we're going to figure it out on the fly. We don't know what's going to happen, but I feel like it's going to be okay. All right. So that was our agenda. We're just going to start with what may be a bit of a review for some of you, but I'll get through it. I'm trying really hard. I just want to say right now to talk slower than I normally talk, because I normally get very excited about whatever we're talking about. And I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And then people are like, wait, what are you saying? So I want you to know, if I speed up, you can still tell me, but I'm trying really hard. So real quick, this is our background about what an eco leader is. What does that term even mean? What's the history? So again, some of you already know this story because you lived it. So EcoCycle started back in 1976, and that was really before recycling existed in Colorado and in most of the United States. So in the 70s and 80s, a group of volunteers drove these old school buses around the county on Saturdays, picking up things like newspapers and aluminum and steel and glass. from the curbs of neighborhoods, just from folks who put stuff out on their curb in front of their house. And this was the start of recycling in Colorado. This was the very first recycling curbside program in our state and one of the very first in the whole country. And so since recycling was a new concept back then, and it wasn't just this kind of scheduled service like we have now, the buses were kind of scheduled on a monthly rather than weekly basis. And so it was hard to get people to participate and put their materials out because they maybe didn't know when or why or what or who or any of those. And so we, EcoCycle, when I say we, I mean EcoCycle as a whole. I wasn't alive, but I feel very invested in this history nonetheless. So we, EcoCycle, could put out newspaper ads or radio ads. We could hang posters, all of that. But it's really hard to kind of push past this initial 10% participation rate that we were getting, and which programs like this typically get, of that 10% of early adopter folks. It was hard to push past that threshold and reach the folks who were not necessarily like, yeah, recycling, like all of us would be. So, oh, I'm already getting winded. Okay, so that's where the eco leaders come in. So EcoCycle and the volunteers identified, the idea was to identify one person in every neighborhood who's like, I get it. I'm excited about recycling. I understand what's going on. I can help my neighbors. Of course, it didn't work out to like one to every neighborhood, but it worked out to a lot of neighborhoods being represented. So this person knew when EcoCycle was coming, and they would put out a sign like you see here that says EcoCycle pickup this Saturday. They would talk to their neighbors about what recycling was and why it mattered and what to put out on the curb. And they would hand out the EcoCycle Times, which was our regular kind of newsletter with the guidelines and more. We have a version of that now. It's called the EcoCycle Guide that comes out every year, every other year. I'll talk about that in a minute. So anyway, this person that was doing these actions was called the block leader because they were the leader of the block, of the neighborhood. And thanks to those block leaders, recycling did take a hold in Boulder County. And it's really largely due to that initial community buy-in that we're still around today. So that's why we were successful at the time. That's why we're successful today. And we've lasted 45 years. This is our 45th birthday year. And it is another reason that our community is really a success story in zero waste, even within a state that is historically not very good at recycling. So eco leaders are the same things as block leaders. We just changed the name because we want these folks in every circle, not necessarily just your neighborhood or your block. We want one of these people in every network. So, book clubs, soccer teams, schools, places of worship, places of work, all of those. And so that peer-to-peer outreach shaped what EcoCycle is today in our current zero waste community, and what we continue to model our work off of, really. Okay, so at its core, this network provides ongoing support and resources to people who are already trying to make a difference, and provides opportunities to be involved when it works for you. So usually, pretty much every time I talk to anyone who's at all interested in being an eco leader, I say, well, you're already an eco leader. Because most of the time people come to me and say, I've been trying to spread the word to my coworkers, or, I tried to tell my neighbor that they shouldn't put plastic bags in the recycling. And I say, you're already an eco leader. So come here and we will gather together. So it connects people who care about sustainability, so don't feel isolated in our fight against climate change, pollution, resource depletion, all of that. And eco leaders are trained members of the community for the sake of spreading the knowledge that they get through this network. Okay. Where eco leaders act as advocates for zero waste in their neighborhoods, multifamily complexes, so like apartments, condos, offices, schools, clubs, teams, local governments, places of worship, anywhere you hang out. Eco leaders are trained in recycling and compost guidelines, and they can spread the word and answer questions from people, from the people with whom they interact. And then when, it's up to you. So that's a big bottom line for this network, is it's really flexible. It's almost too flexible, as we'll talk about later, just in terms of organization and making things concrete. So it's really just however you are an eco leader, there is no wrong way. You just show up in whatever way feels right to you. So the thing you commit to is just getting trained, which almost all of you are. And if you're not, we'll talk about that. And we let you know what you can be doing, and the rest is up to you. So whether you just distribute the EcoCycle guide to your neighbors once a year, or you attend multiple EcoCycle events per month, You are a crucial eco-leader. We're grateful to have you in our network. It takes all of you. All right, so just to lay out kind of, we'll talk a little bit more about this, but just to lay out kind of the various, I say tiers, but levels of involvement, the various options for involvement. So some folks really don't commit to any extra like hours. They wouldn't really put down any hours of involvement, but they're here to soak up information about zero waste. So they attend trainings to become experts, and then they spread that knowledge in whatever way makes sense to them. So again, I have an initial training with each one of you, and then I give ongoing programming every other month for kind of deep dives into new things, so you can get trained on whatever you want. And again, some people are like, I'm going to go give this like a version of this presentation to my office, and that's great. And other people are like, well, now I know it for my own self, and if a question comes up, I'll know. So it could be as simple as, if I'm hanging out in Whole Foods and I see someone struggling over the bins, rather than being like, oh, they're going to put it in the wrong place, I can have a little agency and say, hi, I'm a trained volunteer eco leader with EcoCycle. Like, would you mind if I helped you read that label? Even if it's that's what eco leaders are all about. Okay, so campaigns is a really important part of being an eco leader. Again, if it makes sense to you. So EcoCycle is actually a very small organization. There's like 80 something of us, including all the people who are physically driving trucks and physically sorting waste and all of those really important hands-on steps. And so we do a lot of stuff for how few employees we have. And so when we work on campaigns, we really need people power, and the eco leaders are who we call on first. So whether it's our legislative team needs people to write to their senators or come to a lobby day, or our compost team needs participants for the community carbon farming project. Those are two examples where EcoCycle thinks of something to do, and then they say, Rosie, can you bring the eco leaders to this action, because we need their help. And so some examples of that, so statewide legislation, I'll talk a little bit about what we've been doing there, but it's really exciting stuff. Community carbon farmers, again, it's not necessarily a recycling project that I thought of or anything. It's another project that EcoCycle was embarking on, and so we called on the eco leaders to get involved. Local ordinances like the Louisville bag tax was recent. That was an example. And then the upcoming Cool Boulder campaign, which I'll talk about. But yeah, so it's not only about ongoing basic zero waste education and support. It's also timely campaigns that come up so we can take legislative action and infrastructural action, and do outreach as a group. And then we have, I didn't number these correctly, but we have volunteer hours and then leadership. So some folks are here to volunteer. Great. Again, EcoCycle needs volunteers. So we have event goalies when we have zero waste events, volunteer hours for campaigns, helping with special projects. Like when we do the EcoCycle guide, I need people to help me count the tens of thousands of guides we have and stack them, organizing the donated books in our book room. And then we distribute the guide once a year. So that's volunteer hours as well. And then some people decide how they'd like to be an eco leader, and then EcoCycle and I just support them in whatever they're trying to do. So we have a lot of folks who are like, I have this really specific idea where I'm going to create a hard to recycle collection in my HOA, or I'm going to create a green team. We're going to make sustainability goals for our company. They have these big ideas. And then, EcoCycle is a resource that will support them in that, because if they're doing it, somebody else has surely done it too. So just some ideas that I just saw from the last year. This was off the top of my head, but so many eco leaders did so many things. And we'll talk about kind of what we did as a group, but as individuals. So hard to recycle collections, that was a cool one that actually a lot of people did, since there was a little more time to sit around and plan things, I think. And a lot of people were doing cleaning out. They were cleaning out their garages and their attics and stuff like that. So like this is a picture from Melody Heights, where Andrew, an eco leader, organized with a lot of other folks this really cool hard to recycle event in the neighborhood park. And then we diverted a lot of stuff from the landfill. Kathy Isinogle also comes to mind, who might be on the call. I can't see everyone, but she does hard to recycle collections within her HOA all the time. She has like a mini charm in there. It's great. Workplace green teams. Sanjay and Lydia come to mind as eco leaders who have done this in the last year. Paula works with True Hospice, and she created a hard to recycle collection over there. A lot of people did kind of workplace newsletters. So if their workplace has like a regular email to staff or a newsletter, they asked if they could have kind of a green corner where they answer recycling questions or they give a tip, something like that. Marty Hirsch, I think, who I saw in here, is a great example of a school's eco leader. She's always looking for new stuff to do with her environmental club of kiddos. Elizabeth Swartwood also teaches preschool. She has a bunch of little tiny eco leaders, and she's doing great stuff, not only educating them on zero waste and gardening and food waste, but also setting up infrastructure for the school. A lot of you got really active on Nextdoor. That was a popular one from last year and this year. So lots of folks used it to let people know that they're a community resource. Like, hey, if you have any questions, this is my email, or I live in, not maybe don't put your address, but like something. So a lot of you got a lot of questions, which I'm always happy to help you answer. And then kind of advertise timely information, like where to compost pumpkins or where to bring Christmas lights, or, you know, resources from the fire. That was all good stuff. And then places of worship was popular too for eco leaders. So folks did presentations. They used this time to like put up signs and bins and infrastructure, which was, again, just a kind of a good time since people weren't really around a lot of buildings. So that was a good time to reevaluate your bins. And again, newsletters. So that was just a few shout outs for ways that people have gotten creative and still done really important face-to-face work in the last year, where we had significant obstacles there. Nope, that's not what I want. Okay, so I've mentioned getting trained, so I just want to be very clear that in the past we had big group trainings for eco leaders, and so we would have like 70 of you in the room at the Boulder County Recycling Center, and I would like yell in front of a PowerPoint about the guidelines, and then everyone would be trained as eco leaders. And then I switched that before the pandemic to be one-on-one, because I think it's a much better way to make sure I answer all your questions and make sure I know who you are. So this way, you know, I'll get to know everybody. And then if we have, you know, if something comes up where we're like, oh, we need a person who's good at like GIS, or like they're passionate in this network, then I know who you are. So now it just is, I send you a video, which is just, sorry, but it's 90 minutes of me talking through the guidelines and training you on recycling and compost guidelines pretty thoroughly. Again, I talk fast and it's 90 minutes, so it's a lot of information, but you can watch it totally on your own pace. You can like rewind it if you didn't hear what I said. So that's so that you don't have to hear me do it in real time, because it's a lot. And then I have a face-to-face with you. So again, in the age of the pandemic, if you got trained before this, totally fine. If you have yet to be trained or you want to be retrained, we have a video, and then we have a chat where I just say, what are your questions? What are your needs? What are your interests? Let's talk about how you want to be an eco leader. And then, as I said, we have webinars every other month, which I call Eco Leader 2.0 trainings. And they used to be kind of extended trainings just for eco leaders. And now it's just kind of turned into an open webinar to the public, which is great. We have a lot, like, again, we have hundreds of folks tuning in pretty consistently. And we talk about things like microplastics or circular economy or legislation, or, you know, what is each type of plastic. It's just like a deep dive into things I think are interesting, and we can talk about what you think are interesting later. Okay, and then I just wanted to introduce this idea because I think it's somewhere I want to go with the eco leaders, but I want to hear what you all think as well. So if we've learned one thing from my attempt to explain the Eco Leader Network so far tonight, it is that this program is super flexible. And so since it's so broad and variable, it can be really hard for me personally, maybe it's a personal problem, to really define it and give really concrete resources and kind of next steps and support to each eco leader, because again, there's almost 1,000 of you and you're all doing totally different things. And so keeping that structure is something that I kind of struggle with, especially because I have all these resources and I want to make sure all of you have access to them. So I thought that I could make a handbook, which would be digital, but it could be printed out. And so basically it's just everything I or EcoCycle has created with and for the eco leaders just over the past, like I've been doing eco leaders for, I'm in my 5th year now, but EcoCycle, you know, has a bunch of resources that we've been making for 45 years. So yes, so it would be like your one-stop shop, like your tell-all book and of kind of ideas and answers and things like that at any time. So it would be things like the guidelines training video, if you were like, I forget the basics, like you could revisit that. It would be all the 2.0 trainings, the webinars. And so again, like some of you stress when you can't make the webinars, and then I send you this very detailed follow-up email with the recording and the PowerPoint and all of the resources that I've compiled to go with that training. And so this would be like a list of all of that. So you'd be like, if you were like, I have a few hours to kill on a Tuesday night, let me catch up on the microplastics webinar, you could do that. Or if you wanted to watch 15 minutes of it, whatever you want. Ideas for actions on different scales. So a lot of the things that, like I was just throwing some stuff out just in the past few slides. But this would be kind of like here's a whole beefy list of ideas that you could use as an eco leader. If you're sitting around like, man, I'd love to like take an action, but I can't really think of anything. Marcy just said an encyclopedia. Yes. So FAQs with answers. So again, I get a lot of questions from eco leaders who are like, this person knows that I'm an eco leader and they ask me this question and I don't actually know the answer. Can you help me? So you can always do that. I love to help you with that, but also I thought it'd be useful if I compiled a big list and then you could be like, aha, and then you could just send them or tell them the answer. Okay. And then EcoCycle guidelines and publications. So we have our regular guidelines, but then we make new ones based on what questions the community has. So like we've just made one on packaging and mailers because people are getting so much stuff from like Amazon and Green Chef and all of those. I made a guide for greenwashing with Ari because it's so hard to tell what you're looking at when you try to see what something is made of. And then best practices for things like creating a green team and general outreach and hard to recycle collection. So as I said, when I was listing some of those actions that your fellow eco leaders have taken in the past year, we could compile what they learned and how it went. And, here's information if you would like to do the same thing. So that's my idea and I've been working on it, but I want, that's part of what one of the groups is going to discuss, the education for eco leaders group. And I want you to know that it's coming, whether or not you participate in talking about what you'd like to see there. Okay. And so this is just something that I always like to do when we have an eco leader meeting, kickoff meeting, which is just reviewing real quick. Reviewing real quick how best to navigate kind of this peer-to-peer outreach, because it can be a little awkward because you don't necessarily have a lot of authority, but you have this, kind of position that you're offering. So, let's go over it. So first, I always like to, whenever I'm talking to someone about zero waste as kind of a peer and not necessarily as my position at EcoCycle, just as a person who cares as an eco leader. I like to first congratulate folks for the effort they're making and connect from that place. So if I'm talking to someone who is trying desperately to put a coffee cup in the recycling and I know it's not recyclable, first I would congratulate them because I can tell that they're trying to do a good thing. They're trying to recycle. And so I would say, I can see that you're trying to recycle that. And I so appreciate that because I care about recycling and I can see that you're trying to do that too. Let's talk about why that's not recyclable. Or, even if somebody brings a bunch of single-use water bottles to a meeting every day and you're like, why don't we just use a pitcher, whatever, you could be like, I appreciate that you're trying to provide us all with water. That's great. I think that's just a really important place to start with. And then, if you want, you can back up yourself by introducing yourself as an eco leader trained by EcoCycle. So rather than just being like, ooh, like, I think I know better than you, I think it's helpful to say like, I actually was trained by this organization that runs the recycling program in Boulder County. And that's how I know. Being preachy and judgmental and not being preachy or judgmental and not apologizing for caring it's a tough, long line to walk. But we do it every day. So I think just it's important not to teeter into either zone, because if you're preaching and judgmental, even if you're right and like there, it just isolates people, because again, if they were trying to do a good thing and then they're being criticized, then they're not going to be really on board with what you're saying. But also I hear really often kind of like, ooh, sorry, this is just my thing. And I work in the nonprofits, like rather than qualifying why you care, say it as if it is an important thing that all of us should care about, which it is. And then offering resources is just another great step. So it's not like you put a problem on them and then walk away. So you can say, here's the app, here's EcoCycle's website, here's their phone number that you can use at any time. Here's me, I live next door, I'm an eco leader. And then sometimes, if it works, I like to try my best to contextualize zero waste into a different topic that I can tell they care about. So that could be the economy. Like some people think that they're not environmentalists because they care about the economy, and really they're the same thing. So the more you can kind of bridge those two is great. A lot of people are kind of on the other side where they're such an environmentalist that recycling seems, minuscule. It seems like a detail that might not need to be worried about. Does it matter if I throw my can away? Do you know how many people are dying from the climate crisis? That sort of thing. Again, bridging those two together. The reason we care so much about zero waste is because it's one of the cheapest and fastest ways to reduce climate emissions, conserve resources, and just mitigate climate change in general. Social justice, again, hand in hand. Resource depletion, again, we have to get our stuff from somewhere. So that's kind of just my outreach 101, no matter what level you're doing peer-to-peer outreach on, whether it's like arguing with your uncle at the dinner table or formally doing peer-to-peer outreach. I just think those are my bullet points that I've learned, and would love to hear about other people's as well in the second half. And then lastly here, I've been talking about how we changed it from block leader back in the 80s to eco leader to reflect that we want this person to be available in all networks, not necessarily just residential networks. And so this is kind of my, like, if you don't know what networks you hang out with, who you would do outreach to, you can refer to this. And this one and the last one both have like an actual handout that's a little more detailed that I'll send you, and I would like to include in the handbook. But here's some ideas. So neighborhood, really easy, delivering EcoCycle guides. Again, they usually come out every other year. So it's just as simple as like, hi, I'm your neighborhood eco leader, live in that blue house. This is your recycling guideline for the year. Again, act as a resource. Like I let all my neighbors know that they can ask me questions, they can bring me stuff, they can bring me scrap metal if I'm on my way to Charm, whatever. We can make a neighborhood green team. Like I know an eco leader who set up kind of like a sharing economy in their neighborhood. So they were like, I have a paddleboard and anyone can borrow it. And like this person has a ladder and you can borrow it. Multifamily complex is a good one because usually you share a dumpster, which can be really frustrating for someone who cares about zero waste. So all the same things really. We also have a multifamily complex program specifically with the city of Boulder. So if you are an eco leader and you live in a multifamily complex, like an apartment, a condo, a mobile home park, a lot of townhouses as well, you could be an eco leader there, and City of Boulder kindly provides us with lots of posters and compostable bags and compostable bag dispensers and stuff like that. You can advocate for compost if it doesn't exist. Hang guidelines like for those shared bins is really big. We talked about some of the workplace ones. You can form a green team. You can set up the infrastructure with the bins and the signs. You can hold trainings. You can influence purchasing if you have like styrofoam cups and a Keurig machine in your workplace. We have lots of resources to help you break out of that. A gym, set up, if they have like a bunch of paper towels, set up a little composting bin. Talk to the manager, stuff like that. Clubs and organizations, you can head up the snack committee to help people bring zero waste meeting snacks and beverages, answer questions, have a green team, whatever you want. Schools, all the same kind of stuff. Form a club, do a green team, composting in cafeterias, act as a lunch goalie, and then just friend groups and families, which I'm sure that a lot of you already act as this my entire life. People that I'm friends and family with know that they can ask me questions about environmental things because that's what I care so deeply about. But the point is, wherever you spend time offers some opportunity for peer-to-peer outreach to whatever extent you feel drawn to. Okay, so now 2022. This is a picture of me in a dumpster, one of many. So we're gonna start. So I just wanted to talk about some of the things that are specific now with this new year, with the coming year. All the other stuff that I talked about is really ongoing at any time. You can do it. And in these are just kind of like, this is what's coming up. So I just wanted to give a quick acknowledgement to the Marshall Fire, because we operate primarily in Boulder County, and this was obviously hugely impactful to our community. I live in Lafayette, and yeah, we have been doing a lot of whatever we can do to support the fire efforts. So we have this list of things we can take at the charm. We have resources for the hazardous material, the household hazardous materials management facility, as well as yard waste drop off and burned trees, and resources to kind of regenerate your soils and gardens and repair damaged items. So this is like a big list that we have on our website and in an email, and I'll send it out to you after this. But I just wanted to talk about that, and if we have if volunteer opportunities arise that we can bring eco leaders into, I'll certainly alert you of that. Nope, that's not the next one. Okay, and then our legislative update for 2022. The first thing is that the plastic pollution, every time I say it wrong, and now I can't even say the sentence that I say wrong. The Plastic Pollution Reduction Act, which we worked very hard on last year and for many years before that, passed. And so this, we kind of like, I feel like blew by it because we're like, there's so much to do, but it's so exciting and so worth celebrating. We're really, really excited about it, and we absolutely could not have made these legislative bounds without the support of the eco leaders and all of our kind of eco-cycle network in general. So the Plastic Pollution Reduction Act, again, I will send out more information about it, but it is the most progressive natural resource plastic zero waste related bill ever passed in Colorado, and the most progressive ever passed by a state that is not a coastal state. And so it essentially deals with single-use shopping bags, polystyrene, single-use food containers, like, we call it styrofoam, it's called polystyrene. And then it lifts the plastic preemption, which was a huge thorn in our side for many, 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 many years. The preemption was basically a ban on bans. So it was saying that you can't take action as a community smaller than the state. So even if all of us in City of Boulder decided that we wanted to ban styrofoam clamshells, we couldn't because of that preemption. Now, with the passage of the PPRA, we got rid of the preemption. So now ordinances, communities can take action however they want with plastics. And that is, again, a huge deal because as far as I know, we're the first state to have lifted that preemption, which sets a precedent for other states to lift it. And there's something like 18 other states that have it. So coming up is the Skip the Stuff Act, which was introduced to the House as HB 221134. This one is essentially by request. I'm fine. Upon request only bill. And so it's saying, like, if I go out to eat, I shouldn't just be handed all this single-use crap automatically. I should have to ask, like, oh, I do need a plastic fork or whatever it is. And then producer responsibility will hopefully be introduced to the House next week. It's still in revisions, but it's about packaging. So essentially, the idea is the producer shoulders the bill for his packaging, and the bill is more if it's more material and if it's more wasteful material. So there's kind of a sliding scale on the sustainability scores for various packaging, but it incentivizes definitely less material, more recyclable things, more compostable things, and then producer responsibility for that package, which is, again, something that we've been working on for a really long time. So I can't stress enough, if a lot of you, some of you are brand new, some of you, again, have been here since the 80s, and I think that the people who have been working on it for a while now can back me up that this is just momentum unlike any we've ever seen. Just even 5 years ago, we were like knocking on doors of these legislators trying to make something happen, and now legislators and lobbyists are knocking on our door, asking how we can get these bills off the ground. It's an exciting time to be alive, I think. So what you can do this year, again, this is just the early year, there's going to be more bills. To be involved, you can sign up for legislative updates. And so this is a a sign up form that I will send out to you. And it's just like, let me know what's going on and I'll show up for this, or I'll write my senator. You'll just have your finger on the pulse. And then we also have a virtual lobby day with Recycle Colorado and EcoCycle on the 21st. And I will send you information on that as well. In the past, we've had physical lobby days where we could come have meetings with legislators. And right now it's virtual, but it's still really exciting to be involved on that scale, I think. Okay, and then next for 2022 is the Cool Boulder campaign. So we're really excited about this. This year, EcoCycle will embark on a campaign that will continue for at least 10 years, and if not in perpetuity. So we're partnering with the City of Boulder and a bunch of other community groups around this campaign. The campaign will empower community-led, nature-based climate action to support and mobilize residents to expand vegetation and tree cover in ways that reduce the temperature and promote pollinator habitat, which are two things we really care about. And so we see this campaign as a step two to the community carbon farming project, which was 3 years long and just wrapped up last year. And so while that campaign focused on the climate solution of building soil with amendments like compost to build the soil's ability to sequester carbon from the atmosphere, this campaign will continue to use compost to build soil, this time in support of additional vegetation like trees and pollinator habitat, pollinator-friendly plants to build climate resilience in our community, as well as to build back some of the biodiversity we're losing in both our vegetative communities and pollinator communities. So I'm really excited because I obviously am a huge nerd about recycling and composting and zero waste and all of that resources. But above anything, I and EcoCycle care about climate change. And so the more we can cross over and mobilize our folks to be involved with things like direct community resilience and pollinators, that's really exciting to me. It's really hands-on. So there are 3 action areas and goals associated with this campaign. So the first is urban forestry. So the goal is to help reduce temperatures and expand access to the benefits of urban trees, which there are many. Boulder needs major investments in maintaining the health of its existing tree canopy, and we need to plant thousands of additional trees, and that will be largely on private land to meet those very specific planting goals. And then number 2 is the cool corridors and pollinator pathways. So pollinator pathways are corridors of diverse plants that support cooling temperatures and foster biodiversity, especially for native pollinators. Expanding and creating an interconnected network of these corridors will help manage carbon and water in ways that reduce the impacts of climate change. And this work has already begun in like the Goss Grove neighborhood. Jennifer said, thank you, Jennifer. Are there any other campaigns like this in communities outside Boulder, like Longmont? Yeah, we would love to do this in Longmont. So the reason that this is specific to Boulder right now is just because it's an initiative by the City of Boulder, which is amazing. We love them as a partner for sure. And we are, that being said, going to work very hard to make anyone a space to be involved in this campaign. So whether you live in the City of Boulder or not, we're going to find you a way to get involved if you'd like to be involved. And that being said, the ultimate idea of this campaign, just like with community carbon farming, is that we'll be able to package it up and export it to any community that wants to take part. So again, the kind of building of the campaign is being initiated by City of Boulder and all of these local partners, many of whom are not within the city specifically, but we will find you a direct involvement position if you like one. And our intention is to export this. So whether it's like you're in a focus group or you're, bringing in your own local officials, yes, involvement is definitely a goal of ours as much as we can include people. And so then the third goal of this is absorbent landscapes. So this will be a collaborative effort focused on improving carbon sequestration, which is what we focused on with community carbon farming. The whole idea is we have all of these emissions in the atmosphere, right? Too many in the wrong spots. And so a big goal of the community carbon farming project was as environmentalists and, as people planning our Earth's future and our futures, we have to look at mitigating our current emissions. So how can we reduce what we're putting into the atmosphere? But in addition to that, at this point, we have to additionally look at sequestering carbon. So it's not just about mitigation of current emissions, it's about sequestration of emissions that have already been emitted. So we need to be actively healing the atmosphere. And that's a big theme for this campaign, is like, it's not just about reducing the harmful effects of current climate change. It's about creating resilience. So like, not only are we pushing on the brakes, but we're also maybe finding a new route to where to go. Okay. Yes, great. Next slide. Okay. So then, so there's kind of 4 action opportunities within this. And again, as I said, we're going to work very hard to make sure that it's not just, you don't get counted out if you don't live in the city of Boulder. So one is plant and protect. That's the first action opportunity. So this team, if you sign up for this, will literally dig in and help plant and maintain trees, pollinator habitat, and other important landscape features like shrubs. It will take a little muscle and getting dirty as we contribute directly to our local ecosystem. So if you're not maybe comfortable with a shovel, there are other opportunities for you, such as, so 2 is grow and share. So this team there's 2 things. One, will help create supply of plants. So that's actually a big thing that I'm learning a lot about as we're talking about this campaign, is that not only do we need to be planting these plants, but we also need to be sourcing them. And that's difficult in these times. So we're gonna figure out our plant supply, and then create supply of critical support materials needed for planting successes, including high quality soil, compost, biochar, and mulch in ways that can lower the barriers of cost and accessibility. So again, a lot of the stuff that we already worked on last year and the 2 years prior on community carbon farming. And production systems will include both at home and at work opportunities and community production facilities at a number of different locations. Okay, and then number 3 is train to become a community resource, which is a big reason that EcoCycle is kind of invited to the table on this project, is because we have all of these community leaders already in our network. So participants in this group of teams will be trained to provide basic information to the community members on plant selection, planting guidelines and best practices, ongoing maintenance, problem identification and solutions. So 2 volunteer training programs will be offered. And so there's tree tenders and pollinator advocate trainings. So this is a lot, and we will talk further about this if you are interested in these campaigns. But essentially what I'm describing is you are already an eco leader, and as we embark on this new campaign, we have trees and we have pollinators, and we can take these eco leaders who already know so much about environmentalism and natural resource conservation and all of that, sustainability, and we can say, okay, these ones want to be, bee eco leaders, pollinator eco leaders. These eco leaders want to plant trees. We're just finding new projects for kind of, the community roles that you've already taken. Marcy's going to get bees. I know, I'm so excited. I'm excited for both of them, but a personal interest of mine is pollinators and bees. So I'm really excited about the bees. So if you're a tree person, a tree tender, you learn basic tree planting maintenance and share with other community members in need of assisting, caring for, and planting trees. You facilitate tree distributions, you lead volunteers in planting projects, and you share education materials and tree trust initiatives with the communities. And I know it's obvious, sorry, if it's not obvious, I'm reading these descriptions because I don't want to mess them up. That's why I'm looking this way. And then the pollinator advocate training is, so it's a multi-session training, which will enable those who go through the program to become resources to their neighbors, other community members, or organizations by assisting in the design, installation, maintenance, and monitoring of pollinator habitats throughout the city. Very cool. So we have partners like the Xerces Society and the Butterfly Pavilion are 2 big ones here. We're really excited. Lastly, become a community scientist. So participants in this action area will have the opportunity to join 1 or more teams conducting information gathering and assessing around a number of issues critical to developing natural climate solutions. So like heat mapping, bee surveys, and soil and land assessments. Very cool. So yeah, in all, this will be a really big project for eco leaders starting this year. So again, we have ongoing things that you can always be doing as an eco leader. Again, you could just be helping people in Whole Foods full time if that's what you want to do. But this is, when we created the Eco Leader Network, things like this is really what we had in mind, so that when big, climate relevant projects and opportunities come up, we're like, ooh, we have this big mobilized community of folks we already know care. Let's bring them to this. So this is really exciting. And again, I want to reiterate again that EcoCycle is invited to be a partner to work on this, because we have a long-standing history of, we're an environmental nonprofit. We do community organizing. We've been in the community for 45 years, but also it's because we have this mobile community, and we have this community mobilizing, organizing history. So you are all very important to EcoCycle in terms of what conversations we're even a part of and what tables we're invited to. So yay. So Cool Boulder is very exciting, and I'm genuinely really excited about it. Volunteering for 2020. This is a cute picture of me and my mom and an eco leader, Fadia, and her daughter. We were volunteering to do zero waste wrapping at Patagonia 2 years ago. So volunteering, we have lots of opportunities that change all the time. So like we talked about, this could mean staffing tables during community events. So for instance, in April, which is Earth Month, I get 1 million requests for tabling, and I have to be like, eco leaders have to help me out because I can't be 10 places at once. Helping sort donated books in the book room, helping distribute the EcoCycle guide to other eco leaders. They come up all the time, and I always put them in my monthly newsletter so that you can sign up if you are interested in it. The one that's ongoing currently is a charm attendant. So you go to the Center for Hard to Recycle Materials, or the charm. You get trained, you wear a little vest, and you just kind of hang out in the lane and help folks who come dispose of their stuff correctly. Specifically, like the plastic bag, plastic film collection is tricky, so you can help be a resource. We already have a handful of eco leaders that are there every week who are amazing. So if you'd like to do that, that's ongoing. But otherwise, I'll have a general volunteering sign up. So again, I'm going to send you a bunch of things after this for you to sign up for whatever interested you from this talk. And one of them is just general, like if we have a volunteer opportunity, like a one-off that comes up, let you know. So that will be an option. Okay, that was a lot of me talking, but less than I usually talk. So we are going to now split into our discussion groups. So first we have Eco Leader Education, which is like basically, what do you want to be educated on? So whether it's a webinar or like a guide, the handbook, all of this is good stuff to talk about. We have communicating within the Eco Leader Network. So this is, again, I talk to a lot of you all the time, every day. It's all I do. But I want you to be able to talk to each other. And we've tried a few iterations of this, but essentially I just want a way for eco leaders to reach out to each other rather than me connecting people one by one. Also, how can eco leaders kind of let me know what they need from me, what they're doing, just to gather metrics and offer support. And then we have visibility of the network. So just, again, we're this big network of resources for folks. How can we identify ourselves to make sure, to the extent that you want to be identified, you don't have to like parade it around all the time. But if you want people to know that they can ask you questions, again, we used to have like a window sign for block leaders, but do you want like an email signature? Do you want like a sticker? Do you want a window cling? What do you want? So those are the three groups. Again, you should have I think you chose one when you registered, and I think we will be able to break you into those groups. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We should have a facilitator for each one, but I might have done it wrong.
We'll see. So when I open it, if you did pick one, you should get funneled into that group. But if not, I also made it so you can choose which group to go in if you for some reason weren't assigned to a group. So I'm going to open them all up now. And
wait, can I just say before?
Oh yeah, go for it.
So yeah. Sorry. So so if you're a facilitator, I emailed you. And so we have this Google Doc. We have a Google Doc that I made because I want to give you as much information as I can about like what we've already thought of, what we've already worked on, some of my ideas for each of these things. So there's a Google Doc where I just kind of wrote starting notes for each group, and I'm going to put it here. And so, okay, so everyone should be able to click on that. You can scroll, there's one page for each topic, and then the facilitator has editing access. So everybody else can see it, but then the facilitator can actually should actually be able to take notes on the document. And if you can't, we will try really hard to help you. We're new to this. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to say.
Cool.
That went so much better than I thought it would go. That was great. Thanks so much, facilitators. That was, maybe a disaster happened that I don't know about, but so far it seems great. Okay, so we have 15 minutes to share out what we learned. You don't have to read everything that you talked about, but I think if each facilitator, when it comes to your group, if you could just kind of share out the big bullet points. I'll go first. I was facilitating. We had the first group. Sorry if I didn't specify this, but so many people signed up for the education one that we had 3 different groups cover this. So that's why we were all typing in the same document. My group, we really just talked about how we can best take everything we're talking about, whether it's webinars or guides or videos, and put it in the context of the climate crisis, and maybe on varying scales of beginning knowledge. So, you know, not only appealing to folks who are, as I said, really passionate about climate, but maybe not so much worried about recycling, or like Jennifer in my group was saying that she interacts with folks who don't necessarily even know that the two are connected. And so how can we make a very, succinct connection between climate crisis and zero waste recycling? Why do we care about those? We also talked about wanting to talk about the Marshall Fire specifically in the context of local resilience and the climate crisis, you know, as it pertains to everyone. And then we had a cool idea that was having eco leaders kind of present to one another just about like, we have all these eco leaders who are all so amazing in varying ways in their sustainability. So like some people are like, I have diapers on lock. It's a diaper zero waste situation over here. Some people are like, I do vermicomposting. Some people, like take a bike trip to the zero waste store. And so if we had kind of a webinar that was just featuring eco leaders sharing out what their own lifestyle kind of hacks and tips and ideas are, I thought that would be really cool. That was a cool idea. Okay. So let's see. Jen, do you want to go next?
This Jen? Jen Dingman? Yeah, okay. So we also had eco leader education, and we definitely had some overlap from what Rosie was saying. So ideas of other topics we would like to see covered in the webinars were how to recognize greenwashing. I guess first defining greenwashing and how to recognize it. Another idea was to revisit film, how to recognize if you can recycle film or can't, and frozen food containers, if any, you can recycle. Another one was discussing the China markets, the sword policy that they had a few years ago, and how basically where does our plastic go? What domestic markets does EcoCycle have to send our plastic, so we know that information so we can educate people in our networks who think it doesn't go anywhere. Another idea we had was a webinar on fast fashion versus slow fashion. And then I think we also had the idea of how to share areas of expertise within the Eco Leader Network. Same thing, like some people are great at creating a rain barrel or building a compost pile. So how can we share knowledge within the group? And then another idea we had was to do like an environmental book club or an environmental documentary club, where we all read the same book or watch the same documentary and then come together to discuss it.
Totally. Yeah. Those are all really good ideas. And the book club was something that I had forgotten about because we thought about it before the pandemic, and then nice. That's great. Anything else, Jen? Is that it?
And just that I love to have a section in your handbook where we just list environmental documentaries, because there's so many great ones out there that are on Netflix or other streaming services. So we thought that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, like a resources. That would be great. Nice. Yeah, books too. Totally. Nice. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, KJ, are you around? There you are.
Yeah, let me do a quick. Yeah, good discussion. In terms of other topics, a little bit more of deep dive into kind of the recycled products. Where do they go when they leave EcoCycle? What does those end markets look like? The non-recyclable things, like what happens to those, a little bit more information on there. And then also, as we're trying to educate new residents, and they come and they say, well, we could do this in California, why can't we do it here? How do we answer those types of questions? So a little bit more of like what other communities do, or they might recycle that, but why we as EcoCycle don't do it. I thought those were good. And then getting access to past webinars to newer eco leaders and having that there. And then we talked a little bit about the guides. One would be a workspace guide. Everybody loved the eco leader guide. And maybe a special plastic guide. So those are the three kind of additional guides we came up with. That's it.
Perfect. Nice. Yeah, we do have a pocket guide to plastics that we revamped. So yeah, we'll have to get that back out there. All of those are great ideas. Awesome. Okay. We have 9 more minutes. Sherry or Ellen, are you both here? Nice. Okay. Ellen, do you want to share out?
Sure. We had a small group, 2 people who were both not new to recycling necessarily, but new to this group. And one of the things we talked about was getting together in smaller groups, whether in person if possible, or virtually, but groups of maybe 5 or 6 that are hyper local. So maybe some people who live within 10 blocks of you or your part of town. One woman lives in Highland Ranch, so was also interested in starting a group down there or meeting other people who had similar interests or similar vision for recycling. Or, and I think it's always different on different regions. We have so many great options here in Boulder County, and it's different in different parts of the state. Wondering if there is a contact list by either map or address. And I know there's privacy issues, but you might find out that there's someone who's really interested right down the block, and not just for both for educational purposes or reasons, but also for emotional support and strategizing together. So I think that's kind of the things that we hit upon, and I'll follow up with you with some specific questions so I can answer questions of these folks. But yeah, smaller groups more often.
That's great. That's something I thought of, like, yeah, we tried to do like a Facebook thing. We tried to do like a listserv, and I think that is I am excited about that possibility too. And so one of the things I've thought about there is, like, I don't know how to do it, but I'm sure I could figure it out, that if we had a map and then you opt in, like you drop your own pin and then you're like, my name, then you, rather than me showing everyone's data, people can opt in, like, yeah, connect me with people around me and let me see who's in my neighborhood.
Or yeah, even a list of everyone who's in Longmont or Sville might help. Yeah, I think maybe everyone's a little burned out on technology, so I didn't hear a lot of excitement for like Slack or Facebook's pages, but I think maybe people are really looking for that face-to-face, even if it's a virtual face.
Yeah. And I think, Ellen, yeah, I appreciate that you said emotional support, because I think the like friendship part and just kind of sustaining, not everyone is apathetic is a really important part for me, for the network.
And I think we've been getting some pushback lately too about, recycling, it all just ends up in there's a lot of misinformation out there. Probably part of it's intentional and part of it's not. But so I think people can use that kind of support to say, yes, this is worthwhile. And yes, we have a future. It's very easy to feel like we're all going to step off a cliff in 10 years. And that's just not true.
Yeah, totally. Okay, nice. Just real quick before the last one, for some reason I forgot to write this, but someone said environmental racism. Yes, absolutely. We did it actually 2-part webinar last summer. And yeah, that will be one of the things that's available. We did a lot of stuff on that. And then the shorter webinars, yeah, that you could share with the group for 5 to 10 minutes is also such a good idea. And we've, since the pandemic, been doing like video series. Like we're about to wrap one up, but we've done 2 now. And yeah, that's a really good idea for people who are like, I'm not going to listen to you talk for plastic for 2 hours. So yeah, video series, good point. And then Sherry, did you want to?
Sure, yeah. I might have blown it. I mean, I see here now I have group 1 education, but when we broke out, somebody said we're visibility. So I went with visibility. I hope that's okay. It sounds like you got a lot of input on education anyway. So did you want to hear on visibility now or no?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we had 5 participants, and so we kind of first brainstormed some suggestions to the jumping off list. And one great idea I thought was a large marker on our recycling or compost bins, sort of outing us as an eco leader, or if you maybe saying something like "ask me questions," something like that, a big orange thing that we can affix to our bins. Another idea was yard signs to be put out for a limited amount of time, maybe like Earth Month, Earth Day month, April, saying something like, I'm your neighborhood eco leader, or please come knock on my door. Maybe if people are willing to have their a URL or to EcoCycle and maybe even our names and emails, if people are willing to and comfortable with that. So that was the second idea, yard signs. People like the idea of some sort of template to badge. I don't do Facebook, but to, LinkedIn to badge with a Facebook frame and like next door. And then, another idea was to find ways to promote the next generation of the 3 R's, the 5 R's. And then from the list that you had given, people like the idea of window clings, not just for homes, but for cars, buttons, having a suggested email signature. So yeah, that was kind of, anybody else from our group want to add if I missed something? Michelle, Hannah, Marty, Carl?
I think we also talked about it, whatever it is we do, we wanted to make sure whatever thing, if we make an object, that object is an eco-friendly object, because it would be way too ironic to have like a big plastic sign or something like that.
Marty, I'm so sorry. I don't know if that's my audio or yours, but I think you were cutting out a lot. I'm sure you were saying something really important. Maybe you can put it in the chat. Sorry, Marty. I don't know why that just happened. I appreciate all your thoughts. Okay. Well, that was great. That was like the most. Sorry, Marty. Yeah. I think Ari could hear you better than I could. Marty was saying we can, whatever the visibility stuff, we make sure we do it in an eco-friendly way. Okay. Yes. Thank you.
I have one more input. Can I add?
Uh-huh.
We were talking about the app, the A to Z app. And I think that's a really handy thing to have. Not everyone knows about it. So I don't know, getting that out there again, but it sounds like it needs to be updated and added to for a couple things.
That sounds right. Yeah, there's like a million things in there. And then the more eco leaders can like there's a thing that's like add this, because I don't see it. There's
I thought I saw that. Right. Okay.
And hopefully we're looking at that.
Yes, we are.
Okay, yes, Michelle knows. Great. Yes, we're on it. But yeah, the app is a great thing. If you share anything, like let it be the app, because I mean, but that's an important one to share, because then people will have that going forward. Thanks, Jen. Well, amazing, guys. That was like the most time efficient thing I've ever scheduled. Good job. Yay, good job. Okay, well, you're all amazing. If you, yeah, I don't know. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. It's 7:29. It's snowy. I'm sure you're hungry. But this was such a good meeting. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate all of you sharing your thoughts and feedback and just taking time. So as always, I will send a very detailed follow-up email so you'll have signups for all of the things that we talked about, whether it's like the specific, I want to get trained further on the pollinator pathways, or just like I'm generally interested in volunteering. I will send out signups for all of those. I'll send out the handouts that I referenced here, just so you have them, like some of like the greenwashing and the packaging mailer stuff, just so you have it. All of you should be on the list to receive my monthly EcoLeader newsletters, which are, again, is just like, here's all the stuff I am offering, sign up for things you want, and then let me know what you want in addition to that, outside of that. So I'll also compile all these ideas. I'll send them out. I'll send out the chat box. Yes, thanks, Daria. And we will be in talks moving forward. I also want to set up some, I'll include some signups for some like focus groups. So if you're someone who wants to help us like with our website or even designing the Cool Boulder campaign, we'd love to have you share your thoughts there if you're interested. And I'll follow up with some of these specific ideas with the folks who thought of them, and you don't have to like carry the project on, but just I'll include you as I move forward with all these great ideas. So I will send you that email. Send me any questions, ideas, anything at any time. It's just rosie@ecocycle.org. It's in the chat, but also you'll get the email from me. And that's all I have. Thank you all so much for coming. I truly do appreciate it so much on such a cozy night. And I will talk to you all soon. Thank you so much for letting us do what we do.